أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد وانتشت روحي.
Number 2, the Quran was not like other scriptures. If you look into the comparative religious aspect of it, you find, for example, that the Torah was largely available to the rabbis and the doctors of law. You know, they teach the public, but they are the ones really who keep, you know, the law in their hands. If you look at the history of Christendom, for example, you find that even when the Bible was put into writing, usually manuscripts were only available in the hands of the scholars, the priests, the clergy. And as you know, especially in the Catholic, among Catholics until relatively recently, it was not regarded as appropriate for a common Christian, for example, to read the Bible on his own because they said he could get confused or get the wrong message. So he just goes to the church, sit, listen to the priest, making selection and teaching them what to say. It was, of course, as you know, Martin Luther who raised this issue that every Christian should have access to the Bible. It should not be a monopoly of the learned or the priests. But we'll talk about centuries after that. But the case of the Quran was quite different. The Quran was revealed not in secret, not with a few select companions of the Prophet ﷺ, but wherever he was, traveling, sitting in the battlefield, and everybody's present in the masjid, and everybody's hearing and watching what's taking place. But more importantly, that it became a religious duty on Muslims and a praiseworthy act to memorize the Quran. You go to Bukhari, for example, when we talk about Fada'il al-Quran, a whole chapter on the virtues of the Quran and other books of hadith, and see the amount of ahadith in which the Prophet ﷺ encouraged people to learn the Quran, to teach it to their children, to have their children memorize it. Some of you might remember one of the famous hadith, خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. Very eloquent. خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. The best of you is one, he or she is the one who learns the Quran and teach it to others. So that was a source of immense encouragement for all people. Thirdly, and still, in spite of all that you say, some people still in the Western frame of mind say, how could anyone memorize that whole book? Even at the time of the Prophet. And what they forget, that the Quran was revealed in piecemeal over a period of nearly 23 years, a little here and little there. And that makes it a lot easier to memorize than saying, all right, take that whole book, memorize it, and come to tell me in 2 hours. It was all period, a whole period for. Fourthly, unlike the Hebraic law or the Torah or the teaching of the New Testament, which was used, yes, but not really anything that comes closer to the constant use of the Quran in the daily life of the Muslim. The Muslim pray 5 times a day. And there is always not only the Fatiha, the opening surah of the Quran, there is encouragement of reading beyond that. And of course, they were not like us today, rushing, Al-Fatiha, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, Allahu Akbar, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, Allahu Akbar. These people used to pray in much longer and elaborate way than most of us are doing today. You find some ahadith even that in the same rak'ah you finish Surah Al-Baqarah and go even beyond. How many of us even can take that? Anyway, so the Quran was recited every day in prayer, in required prayer. It was recited in nafil prayer, in sunnah, encouraged or non-mandatory prayers. And then we find lots of evidence in sound ahadith in the variety of hadith book that it was the custom of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ to recite the Quran at night. Some spend most of the night reciting the Quran. Look at the significance and implication of this hadith. When the Prophet ﷺ forbade that you should finish the Quran in less than 3 days. Suppose even that statement came earlier when the Quran was not completed. Still, it indicates that some people were doing it. That he said, take it easy, not less than 3 days. But again, it encouraged to be, not much more than 7 days. And now, when people finish the Quran in 1 month or 2, they think that they are really doing a good job. So the constant use of it. But the use of the Quran also was not only for prayer or worship or recitation at night or teaching. More importantly, it was for learning how to apply it to their lives. So whenever there was a dispute or problem, and you find that still in books of jurisprudence until today, it says, no, you should not do that, or you should do that, and the evidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and then he quotes the ayah from the Quran. It was a reference book for all phases and aspects of the life of the community.